Live from NPR News, I'm Shay Stevens. The Biden administration says it supports waiving intellectual property rights for coronavirus vaccines. As NPR's Scott Detrow reports, India's growing COVID crisis is prompting increasing support for that move.
More than 200 million vaccines have been administered in the U.S., but most countries in the world have barely gotten started. Biden's trade representative, Catherine Tai, says the administration, quote, believes strongly in intellectual property protections, but says extraordinary measures are needed to curb the global health crisis. So the White House is backing waiving vaccine patent rights. This won't immediately make more doses available. First, the World Trade Organization would need to come to some sort of an agreement. And even if patent protections were lifted, many more steps would remain before generic versions could be produced, distributed, and injected into arms around the world. Scott Detrow, NPR News, the White House.
A federal judge in Washington has struck down the government's moratorium on evictions, saying that the CDC did not have the authority to issue the order. The Justice Department says it will appeal the ruling. Opponents of the moratorium say rental assistance is needed instead. The ban was imposed last year because of economic hardships caused by the pandemic. It's set to expire at the end of June. Doug Emhoff, the husband of Vice President Kamala Harris, traveled to eastern Pennsylvania today to meet with small business owners. From member station WLBR, Tyler Pratt reports that the trip was part of an effort to win support for President Biden's major legislative initiatives.
Imhoff visited community leaders in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where many businesses struggled during the pandemic. He stopped in at a manufacturing incubator to speak with mead makers and with the heads of pharmaceutical firms that took out PPP loans to stay afloat. The trip was aimed at promoting President Biden's American Rescue Plan and his proposal to invest $4 trillion on infrastructure.
PPP loans? Weird. Okay, get it together.
That's WLBR's Tyler Pratt reporting. President Joe Biden has declared May 5th Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Awareness Day. Ryan Heinches reports from member station KNAU.
President Biden says the federal government has failed to allocate the necessary resources to investigate the thousands of unsolved cases in the U.S. He pledged his administration's support to address what he calls an ongoing tragedy in Indian country. In recent years, tribes, including the Navajo Nation, have recognized May 5th as a day of remembrance and action for missing and murdered members. It is the birthday of Hannah Harris of the Northern Cheyenne tribe of Montana, who was found sexually assaulted and murdered in 2013. According to the U.S. Justice Department, Native American women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average.
This is NPR. The Texas Senate has voted to allow residents to carry handguns without a license, background check, or training. The measure now goes to the state house. Texas already has more than 1.6 million licensed handgun owners. Following a three-day visit to London, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will now meet with officials in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. From Moscow, Charles Maines has details on what's being billed as a sign of the Biden administration's support for Ukraine amid threats from neighboring Russia.
Before departing London, Blinken said the one-day visit to Kiev would showcase the U.S.'s unwavering support for the independence and territorial integrity of Ukraine. His arrival comes as Russia continues to back pro-Moscow separatists in a simmering proxy war in the country's east that has claimed more than 13,000 lives. Recent weeks have also seen a large buildup of Russian troops and armaments along Ukraine's border, deployments Moscow insisted posed no threat before a partial withdrawal last month. Meanwhile, in meetings with Ukrainian leaders on Thursday, Blinken will push Kiev to improve its efforts to tackle corruption, an issue that has dogged Ukrainian politics throughout the post-Soviet era. For NPR News, I'm Charles Maines in Moscow.
Facebook's oversight board is giving the social media company 6 months to decide whether to permanently ban former President Donald Trump.
He's a terrorist.
The company suspended Trump's accounts in January amid concerns that his posts were inciting violence, like the January 6th insurrection by his followers. Facebook is an NPR financial contributor.
Yeah, you need to nationalize
This is
Facebook.
NPR News.
Seize Facebook
Support for
properties all over the
NPR
world.
comes
Every
from
country,
NPR stations.
Every country can
Other
run their own
contributors
Facebook. You
include
can
the
have like a
Williams
UN run, like the mega Facebook, but take everything Zuckerberg owns because he's the one who got Trump, Modi, and Bolsonaro elected at Putin's bidding, and they're the ones giving the worst virus to the most people. The worst Trump virus in the entire world is in USA, Brazil, and India, thanks to Putin and Facebook. It's not just Putin, it's not just Facebook, but it's them two more than anybody. So you seize Facebook for genocide. The crime is genocide, treason and genocide, but genocide for real. So you seize everything Mark Zuckerberg has, including all his Hawaii land he keeps buying. You can still make it a nature preserve, but make it a real, government nature preserve, not some Zuckerberg nature preserve. And you just seize everything that guy owns. You seize it just like you can seize the property of drug dealers, or you can seize the property of terrorists. You got a war on terror, you're authorized to bring Mark Zuckerberg in, and Putin, and Trump.
A baseball team here at the retired actor's home.